Welcome to my notes on frequency distribution. So you probably recognize the word frequency, and frequency is how many times something occurs. So frequency distribution is a graph which shows how often an item, a number, or range of numbers occurs. So it shows how often an item, a number, or range of numbers occurs. It can be used to construct a histogram. So it can be used to construct a histogram, and we will learn about histograms in our next lesson. And histograms are very similar to bar graphs. So we are going to skip this next part where it says circle the largest and smallest value and choose the most appropriate interval. I've already put the intervals in for you. So what we have to do is figure out how many times students got a test score between 31 and 35, because these are test results. Okay, so we're going to count all the numbers between 31 and 35. Now, some people think 31 to 35, that's only 4 numbers. It's actually 5: 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. So every time I see a number between 31 and 35, I'm going to count it. So I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any here. No. So the frequency is 5 because those scores occurred 5 times. Now I'm going to look for all the scores between 36 and 40. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the frequency is 8. Those scores occurred 8 times. So 41 to 45, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 again for the frequency. And 46 to 50, 1, 2, and that's it. So the frequency was 2, and last, I only have 2 numbers left, so 51 to 55 has a frequency of 2. So that's how you create a frequency table based on a data set. Now, the frequency table is already created, and we're going to answer some questions. So the frequency table shows the frequency of grades obtained by 20 students in a math class. Based on the graph, answer the following questions. So number 1 says, how many students pass if the minimum mark required is 11? So we look, that means they have to get 11 or greater to pass. So I see right here, that happens 7 times. 16 to 20 happened 5 times, and 21 to 25 happened 4 times. So when I add those up, that means that 16 students passed. Okay, because it said the minimum mark is 11. That means the lowest they can get in pass is 11. So I had to count all of them 11 or greater. Okay. How many students failed if the minimum mark required is 11? So anybody who got below 11 failed. So it's these two right here. So 2 and 2 is 4. So 4 students failed. Which range has the maximum number of students? So I look at the frequency, and the greatest frequency is 7. So I look at the range, and it says 11 to 15. How many students are there in the 21 to 25 range? So look here, and it tells me 4. And it says what percent of the students scored a 16 or better. So I'm going to scroll down a bit here, so I have a little more room. And if they scored a 16 or better, I'm looking at any ranges that have 16 or greater in it. So it's this one and this one. So I look at the frequency. 5 plus 4 is 9. And the table told me there were 20 students, so 9 out of 20. And remember, there are several different ways to do this. I'm going to show you with a proportion. So 9 out of 20 equals x over 100 because percent is out of 100. So I'm looking for the percent, so I'm going to do 20 times x, which is 20x. 9 times 100 is 900. I'm going to divide both sides by 20. The 20s cancel, and x equals 45%. So remember, another way to do it would be to just do 9 divided by 20 in your calculator, which would give you 45 hundredths, and then move it 2 to the right to change it to a percent, and you would still get 45%. Okay, turn the page. And now we are going to look at stem and leaf plots. So it says use the stem and leaf plot shown to create a cumulative frequency table that shows the grades obtained by 20 students on a science test. Now remember to review a stem and leaf plot. The stems represent the tens place and the leaves represent the ones place. So here's how I would read this. Key 6-1 would be 61. So the key tells me how to read it as well. So this one would be 62, 66, 74, 75. I'm not going to read anymore. I think you get the point here. Okay. So now I already have the intervals there for you. So we just have to look at the interval and count the frequency, how many times that grade occurred on the science test. And each leaf represents one of the students. Okay, so one student got a 62, 66, etc. So I'm looking for students who scored between a 60 and 64. So I see one student. So I'm going to write a frequency of 1. And cumulative. Okay, the best way to explain cumulative is you've heard your teachers probably tell you the test is cumulative. That means that all the material you've covered up to that point is on the test. So you might hear teachers refer to the SOL as a cumulative test because the SOL covers all the material that you've learned throughout the year up to that point. So after the first interval, the frequency is 1. Okay, so watch what happens. 65 to 69. I have 1 here. So the cumulative frequency is now 2 because I have 1 and 1 makes 2. Now 70 to 74, I have a frequency of 1. So the cumulative frequency up to this point, 1, 1, and 1 is 3. So 75 to 79, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the cumulative frequency up to that point was 3. Now 4 more makes it 7. And if you've already started marking these off, go ahead and erase this because we will mark them off later on to, never mind. Forget that. Keep marking them off. 80 to 84, 1, 2, and that's it. So the cumulative frequency, it was 7, now 2 more makes it 9. So up to this point, we have 9 students. 85 to 89, 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes the cumulative frequency now 13 because it was 9. Now we have 4 more. 90 to 94, I have 1, 2. So we had a frequency of 13, cumulative frequency of 13. Now we have 2 more, which makes the cumulative now 15. And 95 to 99, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when I take 5 and add it to the 15 I already have, my cumulative frequency is 20. And this represents, draw an arrow over here, this represents the number of students, which is also the number of leaves, because each leaf represented a student. And I have 20 leaves, therefore I have 20 students. And my cumulative frequency should match how many leaves there are, and it does. Okay, let's look at another stem and leaf plot. So this time the stem and leaf plot represents raffle tickets sold per student. Okay, so each of these represents a student, and the number represents how many raffle tickets that student sold. So look at the key here. We have 5/1 equals 51. So that means this equals 40, 51, 55, 66, etc. So the frequency from 40 to 49 is just 1. Therefore, the cumulative frequency will be 1. 50 to 59, I have a frequency of 2. Therefore, the cumulative frequency will be 3. 60 to 69, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the cumulative frequency will now be 8. 70 to 79, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So the cumulative frequency will now be 12. 8 plus 4 is 12. And 80 to 9, 1, 2, 3. And the cumulative frequency will now be 15. Okay, turn the page. And also, let me just say one more thing. The cumulative frequency was 15, and there were 15 leaves. So those should always match, because that tells us how many students, and the leaves also tells us how many students. So cumulative frequency and the leaves will both tell us how many students there were. Okay, now we're looking at the next page, which you probably already have turned to. It says the data below shows how many raffle tickets FCCLA members sold. Answer the questions below and state whether you used the stem and leaf plot or the frequency distribution table to determine the solution. So I will keep going back and forth. So make sure you're writing down the answers as we go. So how many students sold exactly 73 tickets? Sorry. So if you look here, I can see that there were exactly 2 students. I can't tell based on this, because I know 73 tickets is between here, and I know 4 students sold between 70 and 79. I can't tell exactly how many sold 73 tickets. So you would write 2 students in stem and leaf plot, and I abbreviated there SNL plot. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. It says, how many students sold at least 80 tickets? So I look at this one, and I can tell 3 sold 80 or more. At least means that number or more. And I can also tell by looking at this. 80 to 89, I can tell that 3 students sold at least 80 or more. So this one, I can write 3 students, and I use both graphs. So 3 students, and I use both graphs. Now the next question says, how many students participated in the fundraiser? In other words, sold tickets. So remember, I can count up the leaves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I can also look at the cumulative frequency here, will also tell me 15. So here I use both to find the answer 15 students. So write 15 students, and we use both. The next question is, what is the mode of the number of tickets sold? So I'm looking for the number that appears the most often. So I look up here, and I can tell from the stem and leaf plot, I can't tell what the mode is on the frequency distribution. So the mode here is 66 because that's the number that appears most often. There are some other numbers that repeat, like 73. Well, actually, the only other one that repeats is 73, but 66 repeats the most amount of times. Therefore, 66 is the mode. I can't tell the mode here because it gives them in a range. So when it tells me a range, I can't tell an exact number, but I can by looking at the stem and leaf plot. So write down 66, and we use the stem and leaf plot. Now, what is the median number of tickets sold? Remember, median is the middle number. Once again, we're going to write down, I'm going to tell you what the median is, 69. And we use this stem and leaf plot. And I'm going to go back up and show you how I knew that the median was 69. So don't turn the page yet. We're going to figure out, I want you to do this on your paper as well. So cross out 1 from each end. I'm always crossing out the smallest and the largest. Smallest and the largest. Smallest, largest, smallest, largest, smallest, largest, smallest, largest. And this is where people get tripped up. Some people write 9 for the median. Median is not 9, it's actually 69 because the stem is 6 and the leaf is 9, therefore that number is 69. So be careful. Now you can turn the page. And it says make a frequency distribution. So we have hours spent on homework, everybody's favorite. Okay, and before I go any further with this, because you're going to be blown away with how many hours, this was a college. This is college homework, okay? Not middle school or high school. So if you look, key says 2/1 equals 21. So we would read this. Now this one starts with a 0, so this is 1, 1, 7, 9, 10, 12, 15, 21, 22, 30, 33, 34, 34, 35. Okay? Now, interval is 1 to 10. So I got to count the frequency. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 11 to 20, 1, 2. So the frequency is 2. 21 to 30, 1, 2, 3. I actually have to go into the next line here. And then 31 to 40, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it says, what was the least amount of time spent on homework? So the smallest number is 1, so we would write 1 hour. Okay, the next question says, how many students spent over 30 hours on homework? So over 30. So I can't count 30, it has to be over 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And actually, we could have used the frequency table as well for that. Would also tell us 4 because all these numbers are over 30. So go down to number 7 and write 4 students. Okay, what was the most amount of time spent on homework? So look at your stem and leaf plot. And what is the greatest number? Hopefully you said 35. So 35 hours. Oops, I forgot to circle that one. Now it says, on average, how many hours each week did these students spend on homework? So I'm going to scroll back up here. So what I would have to do is add all these numbers up. So I would have to add Remember, mean is the average, so add them up and divide by how many? So I'd have to have 1 plus 7 plus 9 plus 10 plus 12 plus 15, etc., etc. And since there are 14 numbers, or 14 students in the stem and leaf plot, I would have to divide by 14. So the average is going to be 264 divided by 14. My calculator had a bunch of numbers after the decimal, so I'm going to write down the first two because we typically round the mean to the nearest tenth unless it says otherwise. So I'm going to underline the tens place, look to the right. If it's 5 or above, give it a shove. So the mean is 18.9 hours. So on average, these 14 students spent almost 19 hours. Okay, now, it says what percent of students spend more than 10 hours on homework each week? So I have to count all the ones that are more than 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I could have also used this as well. So counted up all the frequencies. So it's 9 out of 14. Remember, there's more than one way, but I'm going to show you with the proportion. So 9 out of 14 equals x over 100. 14 times x is 14x, and 9 times 100 is 900. Divide both by 14. And once again, there was a bunch of decimals, a bunch of numbers after the decimals, so I only wrote down 2 because I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. So underline the tens place, look to the number to the right. And if it's 5 or above, give it a shove. So it's 64.3%. Okay, let's move on to the last page, and we're going to look at line plots. So it says, use the line plot to create a frequency distribution that shows the height of 7th grade students. So we're going to write the title, which is height of 7th graders. Okay, now I'm going to scroll down, so hopefully you wrote down height of 7th graders, so we can see the line plot and the frequency table at the same time. There we go. Okay, so each x is representing the height of a 7th grader. So if I want the frequency, I got to count the x's between 51 and 55. So 1, 2. Remember, the cumulative frequency would be 2. Okay, 56 to 60, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And now the cumulative frequency would be 20, because altogether so far after the first two intervals I have 20. Now 61 to 65, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I had 20, now 6 more makes it 26 for the cumulative frequency. And 66 to 70, I count these 3. So now the cumulative frequency is 29. So it says how many students are between 55 and 64 inches tall. So I have to count all the x's between 55 and 64, which is all of these. And I'm going to save you some time. Trust me, there are 25 students. Okay, so write down 25 students here. Okay, now it says, what is the mean height? So what I would have to do is I would have to add the height of all the students. Now, look here. The height is 52, so I'd have to have 52 plus 55 plus 56 plus 57 plus 57 plus 57 plus 57 plus 57 plus 57. I'm going to save you a lot of time. I've already done the calculations for you. So when I add up all those heights, okay, I get 1,727, and there were 29 students in all. The cumulative frequency told that. I could have also counted the x's as well. And my calculator said 59 point and a bunch of numbers after the decimal. I only wrote down 2 because that's all I need to round to the nearest tenth. So underline the tens place, look to the right. If it's 5 or above, give it a shove. So I am to 59.6. Okay, it says which heights on the line plot are not represented by the students in Mrs. Troyer's class. So look at your line plot above, and all the ones that don't have X's are the ones that I'm going to be writing down. So that's 51, 53, 54, 62, 65, and 68. So all those heights were not represented by Mrs. Troyer's class. It says how many students are 60 inches or taller? So look at your line plot and count all the X's that fall in 60 or higher. So count them up right now. Hopefully you got 11 X's, so that means 11 students are 60 inches or taller. It says which interval is the median height located in? Okay. So I'm going to show you 2 ways you could have got this. I'm going to show you with the cumulative, with using the frequency. Okay. We know that there are 29 students, so we know the median would fall at about the 15th number. Well, if the frequency here is 2, then and 18, so that's 20, the 15th number would fall in this range, so 56 to 60. I could also cross out 1x from each end until I had 1 in the middle. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all this. I cross out 1 from each end, and it would end up right about here would be the median, which would be 59, so that would fall in the 56 to 60 range. So the interval would be 56 to 60. So write down 56 to 60. And the last question, how many students are 56 inches or shorter? So look up above at the line plot and count all the X's that are marked from 56 or shorter. So hopefully you counted 3 X's, so that means 3 students. Okay, that concludes our notes on frequency distribution. I hope you have a great day.